Lift off in 3, 2, 1.
Hello.
Hi there. So I guess I should start by welcoming anybody that's watching. So
Thank
welcome.
You for having me.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say this is the Body Mind Index. I'm your host Jerry Pujols, and I'm sitting here with a friend who's been a friend in the periphery for too long, and I just thought it'd be great if I can just sit down with Jane. How do you pronounce your name? Is it Jane or?
It's Jane.
It's
yeah.
Jane.
Janie is what Janie.
Yeah,
Jane.
the spelling. What's the spelling?
Well, on the internet, I'm Juana de la Selva.
I know,
That's
so I've been
who you are.
confused by that. So I want to make
I have
sure.
6 names on the internet.
I like it, and I did,
So serious.
and I did watch your podcast, and it gave me a little bit more insight as to
Oh, cool.
some of the things that you may do on your during the times that I don't see you, because normally I run into you while you're at work or you're shopping or you're hanging around with your son.
Yeah.
Which is amazing to see how much he's grown. But this meeting just comes strictly out of a curiosity to get to know you better, and and it also comes out of an indulgence to hang out with people that I find fascinating. It's really where it comes from.
Very nice.
Yeah. So it's I've seen you since, I can't say since you were a little girl, but it's been you may have been a teenager.
Early 20s.
Early 20s?
Or, yeah, like late teenager, early 20s.
Well, I've known your dad since you were a little girl. I'll tell you
okay.
that. Yeah, I've known your dad. I knew your grandfather probably since you were born. I mean, it goes back that far.
Yeah, I always thought of you as a family friend, so
Yeah.
I was honored to be on this. I didn't know you had any interest in yoga at all. I always just thought of you as my parents' friend.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to learn more about you.
That's kind of that. So you just hit on the premise of why we're together today, and I didn't want to waste any of those words before Idisham hit the record button, because it would have been a lost moment. And I find that the more of these I do, some of the most meaningful moments happen before the button.
Very true. And then as soon as it turns on, we get stiff and forget what we just wanted to talk
about. And thank you for getting that, because you're already ahead of most guests, because a lot of guests some have been in many podcasts. I've had guests that have been on not hundreds but thousands of podcasts, so they're very experienced at being a guest in a podcast. But for the ones who have not been a guest in a podcast, it's a totally new experience. It comes with some stress and maybe lack of breathing and things like that. And then the wanting to put forth a persona, or the need to put forth a persona. And that's one of the things that I have struggled with, is to not worry about putting on a persona.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been in sales for many years, so we spend a lot of time building this persona, and then it sort of remains, and then you run into what I ran into a couple of years, which was pretty significant identity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So not to digress that much, because I do want to learn about you, and that's really why we're here. But I'm also an open book and happy to share, because to be maybe more specific, this is, as I said earlier, this is a moment that I'm indulged in having. But it's a space that we just get to share for a moment in time, and it's very special to me.
I completely agree in the specialness of it. I was actually doing a podcast. I was telling him for a while. I started a while back, just on a whim, and it ended up being so special because I realized you get to connect with someone in this long form conversational manner that usually people don't have a lot of time for, unless you really schedule to make time for a good friend. But to meet new people and have a long conversation is such a I don't know, treasure.
Outside of a few personal things that I get to do that are family centric, this is my favorite thing to do every week. I mean, this is it's becoming almost like oxygen in some ways for me. This is probably our 30-something episode, Eddie. I don't know if it's, but we're close to 40 episodes. We've done, I don't know if dozens or if we're over 100 little shorts. We do shorts. We talk about nutrition and things like that in the shorts. I tease a cousin of mine about eating a certain way because I want him to get healthier and things like that. So the Body Mind Index, the name Body Mind Index, has transcended just the obvious physical and mental. It's It's also getting more into community, the spending time together, the things that are truly healthy for our well-being. And digressing just a little bit to what we're talking about is I'm finding that being truly authentic in these moments, it's what almost grounds me the most.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of you for being so consistent with it, because that's, I think, the hardest part is getting, like, having this good idea and then making it really find a rhythm. And now that you feel like it's really soothing for you, that's the best, I feel like, success method, because then you'll be able to stay with it because it's doing something for you and for others.
So I have an idea for you. Have you ever struggled with that?
Absolutely. It's my main struggle.
So
I have a million good ideas and I'll start doing something and then I'll be like, oh, I'm kind of scared of that now. Let's do this idea. So, yeah.
So one tip would be surround yourself with an Idisham who won't let you off the hook.
Yes, exactly.
You're right.
Helpful.
Once it's on the calendar, it's really hard to squirm our way and weave our way out of the commitment.
Yes.
He has a way, and he also has a very positive and nurturing way to bring you back to that. So, yeah,
good to have organized people around.
Feel free to use us too. I mean, if you're going to do that and you want to do something, if you ever want to use the studio, I'll give you the key to it. You're welcome. You're welcome to use it. I'd love to see people use the space. I mean, it's got central air conditioning in this 10 by 12 structure. It's really, so feel free.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a cool thing.
So you're doing this once a week now? We're
doing it once a week, and then some weeks, Idisham is starting to push back a little bit, not in a bad way, but he's, there were a couple of times that we've done, once or twice we've done 2 in a day. Mm-hmm. What's nice about it is we get ahead. So if I'm ever on vacation or he's on, Idisham travels a lot, I move around a lot, so we're kind of moving targets. And so doing twice in a week, it helps fill in the gaps because we like the continuity of doing 1 a week.
Yeah. And it's good to stay consistent because then you want to get out of the habit.
Exactly. And but it's, he does all the editing and he puts a lot of time into that, even though Idisham is brilliant at using resources such as AI and things like that do help now.
Nice. Yeah.
It's still a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. It is. That's part of the reason I stopped, honestly, because I was like, this is a full-on part-time job and I have to actually make money first.
Yeah, you still have to feed yourself.
Yeah.
You still have that. How old is your son now?
He's 14. He's a freshman in high school. I really can't either. It's really wild and fun to see how he's growing.
Well, you know what's fascinating about that young man is that from the time I think he was born, he looked like a little man. He's never had a traditional baby look.
I really appreciate you saying that because he's felt like a little man since he was like 3.
He's a little man.
Yeah.
He's a little man, and then now he's filled into a young man. But I used to tell your mom, I used to say, he looks like a little man.
Well,
he's a little man.
You saw his spirit. Because when he was like 3 years old, he'd be like, I'm going outside. It's going to rain. I got to go make sure things are okay outside.
He's a little man.
I'm like, okay, 3-year-old boy.
Oh my God.
It's very cool.
So cool. So what are you doing these days besides yoga? How are you feeding yourself?
I'm doing really well. I'm teaching yoga, and that's my main thing right now.
In Santa Elena or where?
In Santa Elena, in Calistoga. Wow. And then I have private clients. And then that's been my main thing. I do that most of the time. And then I also sell things online that I find.
Okay.
I've been doing vintage online selling for a while. I was selling books on eBay for a while. So that's been like a side business that's really fun and just easy for me to do for some reason.
You love to read. I mean, I picked that up. You love reading.
I do, yeah. I learned a word recently. There's bibliophile, which is, of course, of someone who loves books. But then there's bibliomaniac, or in bibliomania, which is when you're just like beyond. So that's kind of where I'm at at this point. Just recently, just a little bit, only because of just choosing to move away from dating and just deciding to focus on myself almost for 2 years now. So it's just become a bigger part of my life to be reading and journaling and meditating and doing a ton of this, working out, meeting amazing people, traveling, being with my son.
Sort of being light on your soul, right? Sort of being able to just, because I think when you have all those other factors in, you're probably a little bit more confined.
Which other factors do you mean?
Well, dating,
Oh, yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, any one of those things.
It tends to pull me away from other
100%.
things that I would be doing.
100%.
So, yeah, and I have a lot of goals with my art and things that I'm always putting together. So it's been enjoyable to focus on that. And I just love the world of books.
I love that you do. I struggle with it only because I find myself to, and there is something, I forgot what the word is, because there is something for my condition, which is I don't, I'm sure you're like my wife, where you can almost be in the story. I mean, where you can feel the story and be in the story, and you can visualize the surroundings and the stories, and maybe you might even pick up smells. And I mean, you might pick up some of those visceral.
For sure.
I can't, and I don't, which I always feel like I'm missing something. And even when I watch a movie, you know, a movie is something that is, for me, it's almost somewhat of a waste of time, because I don't retain any of it. I forget, because I'm so not engaged. Auditorily, I find that I engage the most.
Yes.
So it was interesting, because I also look at education, and I look, you know, I dropped out of school in the 10th grade and I never went back.
You did, me too.
Did you really?
Yeah, but I graduated through independent studies.
At least you did that.
But, yeah, that's amazing.
I never went back, and in some weird way, I wear that like a badge of honor, because I'm the guy that went to school, and I would literally, from the 9th grade on, I would put my head on the desk and fall asleep, and the teacher would say, "Okay, Jerry's done. Don't pay attention to him. He's just going to sleep."
Cool teacher.
Yeah.
Some teachers that pour water on.
Yeah, no, I had those in 8th grade. Those were in a Catholic school in Puerto Rico. That was in 8th grade.
Wow.
Yeah, they pull your hair when I had hair, and it was brutal.
Well, I mean, no wonder you left school early.
Yeah, school was pretty traumatic for me.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So no, it's interesting that, but I do love that people can connect with reading in such an intimate way. You know, I just learned yesterday by watching a podcast that Arthur Brooks wrote a book on happiness, and you know, I'm really curious. But he co-wrote it with Oprah, and it just came out like in the last week or two.
Oh, okay, it's new.
And I'm really I actually just bought the auditory version of it, because I buy all books auditorily, and I love that part of the journey. But I'm still a little envious of people that can connect with reading in that way, because I can see how relaxing it is to just be able to. But every spare hour that I have is listening to something. And if I would have known that in school, I probably would have enjoyed school a lot more.
Right. I feel like I'm really lucky, because my mom actually took us to the library every week and would let us check out as many books as we could.
Yes.
And so I feel like, because at that like subconscious programming age of between 1 and 7,
yes,
we were reading and at the library constantly. So I feel like because of that, it became a part of like my identity. And then because of I always was really introverted and shy, and if I was seen reading, everybody was always like, "Oh, she's reading. That's good." So I was always very encouraged for reading. To read. And I was always like, so it became like this badge of honor, like, well, I'm reading, and if I'm reading, people will leave me alone and be proud of me.
Yes.
So I basically like started just really, and then it became like a first form of escapism. If things were challenging going on, I'd be like, well, I'll just get into this book. Yes. And I've noticed that even by having that as such a huge part of my identity my entire life, by getting a smartphone in like early 2010s, it messed with my ability to concentrate on books tremendously. And for a little while, when I first got a tablet, I stopped reading for like a year, which was like mind-blowing for everyone. They were like, "You haven't read?" And I'm like, "I haven't read anything." And then one day I was like, "I'm not a reader anymore." And I felt like weird about that. And then I was like, okay, I want to read again. So I started trying to read, and it was so hard to read again. I couldn't concentrate. And I was like having to reread the page over and over, and having to reread the paragraph. And I was like, this is so hard. And
that's how I live. Just what you said, that's exactly how I live.
Yeah, and like I wanted to read it, and I was like, I used to be able to engage. Why isn't this? And I realized that it's absolutely because of smartphones, that our brains aren't able to concentrate as well, because everything's happening so quickly when we're scrolling and just everything's so much
outside
faster.
Interference coming in too. While you're reading, there's pop-ins and there's all kinds of, right?
Yeah. It's like almost impossible to just really have to sit there with an activity for like 40 minutes. Like it's a form of meditation.
Yeah.
So now I consider it like a discipline that's helpful for my concentration, to sit there with I consider it a meditation. Yeah. And I feel so like good when I'm getting into a nice flow with the story, and I'm getting so involved that I want to keep reading. That's like the best feeling. So it's so I feel like part of my purpose now is I'm realizing yoga is a huge part of my purpose, and I love it. But I'm realizing as time goes on, I'm like, I love reading so much, and I've noticed that I end up talking to people about reading, and I'm feeling like maybe that's a part of my purpose, is to like be reigniting the love for reading for people, because I feel like one of the valuable things about it that people don't realize is the internet is constantly changing, and it's really easy to remove things from the internet, and it's easy to like scrub things and have a certain narrative. And So books are printed and they exist now, and you can't change anything about what's already been written in that book with that time on it. And it's like a physical object that holds information that you can't change. And I feel like that's so powerful. Yeah. So now I'm a book hoarder.
From that perspective, I totally appreciate that, and I have to agree with you. Yeah, that if you have something memorialized in print, it doesn't have, you don't have the ability to make an audit or an edit.
You can't say, you can't change this. So it's interesting. Have you seen the movie The Book of Eli? I know you don't really like movies.
No, but I may have seen that movie. I just might not remember.
It was like a long time ago, but it was about a post-apocalyptic world where all the books had been burned and the internet didn't exist anymore. So people only knew what they knew, and there have been a few generations of the books being gone, so only certain people had books. And whenever people did have a book, they were like found and killed, and the book would be taken from them. So they were like hiding books and smuggling books, and so
because there's agenda, there's sort of propaganda or agenda that's kept out there.
Yeah, there was like some powers that be that destroyed the internet and all the books. So only people that could have the information were certain people that were like the elite. So everybody else was like in this. So ever since then, I've been like, I'm the holder of the books. I have the knowledge and the power. Like, so yeah.
But and to that point, there's a lot of truth to that. In the society that we live in now, don't you agree that there is? I mean, a lot of the information is withheld, and a lot of the
absolutely,
it's just what we get what they want us to see.
Yeah,
that's what we
get
more and more.
Yeah, even in the early 2000s, there was more freedom on the internet than there is
now.
Yeah.
I think that's why I have to go back to the importance of this and having even face to face, because and I appreciate you coming in person, because we do some of these in Zoom when people are out of area or traveling or something like that. Even though they're
harder to connect, and I find myself like accidentally talking over their voice. I'm like, oh, sorry, what'd you say?
Yeah, this is what evolutionarily, this is what we do. This is how we are. This is what we're wired to want to do. We want to spend time with each other and having discourse and having conversation. I really appreciate for right now, Jerry Jr. and Sierra and their kids are living at my house while they're remodeling their house. And it's the most special, right? Because we're doing this in the evenings and we're just sitting around in the living room and doing things that we normally don't get to do as often. We do it maybe once a week. We meet on a Sunday or something like that. But every day to commune with your family every night and download when you get home from work.
So special to be intimately connected like that. It bonds your relationship so beautifully, to not have it be like a special occasion thing, but just every day.
It's just really something worth pausing on, because Sierra was at a women's group meeting that she had last night, and as one of her nearest, dearest, and closest friends was coming up towards the house where they were having the meeting out here in Browns Valley, Sierra's friend hit a young man in his 40s, hit him on his bicycle while his 4-year-old son was riding a bicycle right behind. Didn't hit the 4-year-old, but the gentleman that got hit went to the hospital, and it was a traumatic thing. So when Sierra got home yesterday, she'd been dealing with that, and watching and sitting with her friend through that trauma of that, and we were able to listen to her explain that and maybe offer some ideas as to maybe what her friend can do to work through this, and not forget things that maybe she should be doing already to prepare herself for what may be to come, because it's traumatic, and there's not a winner in this whole thing. It's everybody loses.
Really challenging situation. That's horrible.
And it was bizarre, because sometimes we move. I get into the rhythm of the morning. I'm getting ready to get out the door, and as I walked out to the garage, I was like, wow, I didn't even ask Sierra how she's doing today, because she actually had to go to bed with that, and I'm glad I remembered to check in, because it still hasn't gone away for her. For me, I'm much more in the periphery, so I'm not as traumatized by it. I'm just trying to be mindful enough to support her.
That was really intuitive of you to go check on her.
It's taken a lot to pick up on that. I mean, I'm 57 in November, and it's taken a long time to get to that.
That's amazing, though.
That's bizarre.
That's beautiful. You have a close relationship with your family right now, or that you're able to spend that much time with them.
Oh, that's amazing. No, I keep joking with them. I said, well, Wait till we remodel. Maybe that's what I'm going to do. Maybe I'm just going to remodel my house immediately so we can move into there for a while.
That's cute. Yeah, keep it going.
make it a reason. It's been so special that, yeah. But then it's funny. Then there is also the dynamics. I also feel like, to have mom and dad at home. I think Sierra has been easier with it than our own son because, everybody, as a parent, you need to give the space for growth.
Right.
So it's such a balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
You lived at your parents' property for a while.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Was that seemed pretty
so
cohesive?
Bad. Yeah, it was great because they had that huge
property. It was a big property.
It was a house in the front, so I had totally my own space, which was really nice.
Your sister had her own space too.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it was so big.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was perfect. How's your sister doing? I haven't run into her.
Really
I wouldn't recognize her.
No one runs into her. She doesn't really go into public very much, but she works as an esthetician at a dermatology office. So she's doing that and doing very well with that.
I wouldn't recognize her. I'm telling you, you're the only one I recognize, and I barely recognize you. I really have to do. I walked behind you. You got out of your car the other day, and I was walking behind you, and my friend, who was. Not was Guy our last episode or the episode before? So my friend who very, very intelligent, entrepreneurial, young spirit, guy, gal, who I had as in the podcast, because he and I struggle with I think Guy would think it's okay for me to say this, that we struggle with food addiction. So addiction to food. And, but, sometimes us addicts that have an addiction to some things, we find other ways to become successful at things.
Mm-hmm. I have yet to meet someone who doesn't have an addiction to something.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you. That's really smart because I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
There's, I think most people have something that they binge on.
Mm-hmm.
Or on a moment of weakness.
Secret or whatever, but there's something they're leaning on.
We're all really good at lack of vulnerability, I think, most of us. I'm working hard at authenticity and just letting go of that shield.
I think it's hard in this valley, especially because I've been very an open book a lot of the time in my life, and I've had it backfire.
Yeah.
People are like, "Oh, I learned a lot about her, and she's really naive, and I could take advantage of that." And oh, what a sucker kind of thing. So I understand why you would be, why there's a balance between vulnerability and being shielded and
guarded. Yeah, and honoring yourself in that way because and I'm having a hard time with that because somebody asked me the other day, do you have to have a deep and meaningful relationship with everybody? Somebody asked me that. And it's funny, I struggle to answer that because I prefer to have a meaningful, I don't know if it has to be deep, but I definitely prefer to have a meaningful relationship with those around me.
I agree. Like, why would I want to? If anything, I feel like perhaps that could have been a projection of feeling like they aren't able to make close connections, and maybe they're triggered by the fact that you have a lot of close connections.
I don't know.
Because it seems almost like a criticizing thing, but like, why would you criticize someone for being able to have close relationships or desiring to have closer relationships? Desiring
to have, yeah. The person that said it.
I mean, I'm not trying to make a judgment. Just if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, why would that be a bad thing? I don't know.
No. Point is well taken. It's the person that I was talking to. I mean, actually, she's one of my best and dearest friends. And I think she was coming from a place of there are people who are not ready for that.
Oh, yes, that's true. I mean, if you're doing it in a way that makes people uncomfortable or like going past their boundaries, then that's something else, I think. But
well, I'm running into one specific situation where somebody wants a deep and meaningful relationship. I don't know if the person has the self-awareness and capacity to do the work. Mm-hmm. And I know I probably have some narcissistic tendencies. I hate to use that word because it's so labeling and kind of demeaning, and it can be self-demeaning. But
no, I've been looking into that whole subject, and I've been having a lot of self-awareness around it too. I think a lot of us, or I think everybody at some point can, I don't know, get into that territory.
Behave in such a way, yeah. And that's where I'm struggling with this individual is is there not the self-awareness? Did you lose your kombucha?
I love my kombucha.
No, you got to find your kombucha.
I know. Oh, here it is. Okay. Thank you.
Kombucha back. I'm just, it's interesting. The person that I'm going through with this is, I want the relationship to be deep and meaningful. The person wants the relationship to be deep and meaningful, but the work that's required to go in, I don't know if that person understands the work that it takes to break through and have. And I think a lot of this, I have to believe it starts with us taking ownership and knowing the part that we play in it. Because I don't think if we're aware of the part that we ourselves play in things, then where do you go from there? So I'm hopeful that it happens. But I think I need to give grace to the fact that you can't have a deep and meaningful relationship with everybody, that you have to guard yourself, and you do have to have boundaries, and you do have to be okay with superficial relationships and a high and by.
Sometimes when people are like, it's like that whole thing about you can only meet people as far as they've met themselves, that whole thing. Yes,
that's a really good one. And even when I talk to people about the sort of way that it'll be a year in October since I became vegan, but
nice.
And a vegan that does not eat salt, oil, or sugar.
Good for you.
Or dairy of any kind. I mean, it's really stripped down, but it's helped me clean my palate in a way that I've dropped 80 pounds. And
Congratulations, that's huge.
I'm doing things that.
I'd love to hear more about that. How did you get started with that?
So going into the food addiction, maybe I'll go back a little further. Through, let's call it, traumatic events with my mom and my dad. So my mom and my dad were a young couple, got married when they were teenagers. Lovely on pictures, lovely couple on picture. My mom really cute, 5'1" gal. My dad really handsome, 6'3" guy. He was 17, she was 15. He just came from Cuba. She lived in Puerto Rico. She was more affluent. My dad, farm boy from Cuba, looked a little bit like, some of his pictures, he looks like Elvis Presley. He was really handsome.
Aww.
I mean, I remember when I was growing up with my dad as a young boy, it was bizarre that in Florida and Miami, like, women would pull my dad over, like literally pull him over. It was that kind of attractive guy. Yeah. So I grew up with that as something to be proud of.
Oh, I imagine.
Yeah. So I always thought my dad was the shiznick, but then my dad would physically abuse my mom, and I experienced all that till they divorced when I was 12, 13. My mom sought refuge in an ashram, and that was my first exposure when I was like 12 years old to yoga. My mom moved in. She would force us to, I would say force because we didn't want to go. Right. At 12 years old, you don't want to go to a cold. The ashram was freezing temperature. They would keep it really cold because Swamiji believed that cold temperature is better for meditating. And it's funny, other people do hot yoga, but over there it was freezing yoga. It's because in Florida it's so hot outside. I think they make all the inside, the air conditioners are always in their 50s and 60s. They would make everything so cold. So I remember freezing and hating it. So my mom would also force us to get up every morning and do sun salutations. And I don't know if you know what in Hatha Yoga, what the rhythm of exercises or the series of exercises that you do. Like
18 towards the sun or something.
Yeah, we would do that. I should still remember some of them by heart because we did them so many times. So there was a resistance that I built around that. But as I built a resistance around that, I think the food became the book for you. Yeah, the food for me. That was the escapism. Yes, absolutely. So then I struggled with that. I lost a bunch of weight when I was about 16, 17 by, starving and that type of thing, reading some of these old diets that were back in the day. And so I was able to do that. I moved to New York when I was about right before 18 years old. I moved to New York City, and I got discovered in a restaurant by an acting manager, and I got some commercial modeling work, and
how cool.
And did some off-Broadway plays and did some acting school. But this only lasted a couple.
That's cool. So you sing?
No, just acting.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I didn't. No singing whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
No
I thought
dancing
it was Broadway. I thought.
No, off-Broadway. So Barefoot in the Park and things like that. They weren't.
Okay.
They were not musicals. But I did get some exposure to things early on that stayed with me. And when I moved to Napa, then I met Susan, and we built this life together. Then I found, again, more solace in the food, because at 23, I started building my first business. I had a produce wholesale business in the San Francisco produce market.
Oh, very
I had
nice.
2 little produce stores in Napa. I had one on Silverado Trail, one in Santa Elena across from Trevina.
Oh, okay.
I had a produce store back in the day, and I was super entrepreneurial and just worked all the time, but then, super off balance with self-care. And so that continued my battle with weight. And fast forward to a year ago, I ended up going for a physical high blood pressure, and then decided that, you know what, something has really got to give. I got to get some of this weight off. I was closer to 300 pounds. I was hurting everywhere. Joints were hurting. I love hiking. I did the John Muir Trail by myself 3-4 years ago.
Oh, cool.
It was a life-changing experience for me.
Wow, yeah.
And it also allowed me to understand that time alone is so valuable. And I never understood that, because I always needed people. Susan would always say that, God, you always need to be around people. For when I wrote my books on real estate, I did 500 real estate seminars. So I was always basking in the ego of being patted in the back and surrounded by people and loved by the audience and connecting with an audience. So I got a little bit of a feel for what a rock star might feel like.
Yeah.
In a real tiny way. But I can see where that was addicting in and of itself, and it was really hard to self-care.
Yeah, I can imagine. That would be overwhelming.
So the way that this nutrition thing came to be was because of the way that I ate through the ashram and things like that, and I know I could enjoy being a vegan. I know I can cook that way, and I love it. I love so many different cuisines. I connected through research. I connected with something. And it was really Joel Fuhrman that started me down the path. Dr. Joel Fuhrman talks about sugar, oil, and salt being sort of the handcuffs that are around society to get us addicted to where they say the old proverbial, you can't just eat one.
Yeah.
It's true.
Well, because it's like hyper intense for the palate, so then you get addicted. So then when you taste normal things like a steamed broccoli, you're like, oh, this is bland. So bland. Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
You get it in a way that most people don't get it. And then where I struggle, where I have a hard time meeting people where they're at, like you were saying that so beautifully a minute ago, where you have to meet them where they're at. And people are not there. And there are people that believe that you cannot have a happy life without going out and eating something with reduction sauce on it.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Or without a glass of wine, or without a cocktail. You can't possibly be happy if you're not doing that.
They'll feel like they're depriving themselves. Yeah. Or
not able to socialize or relate, because if you're doing it, I have to do it, and we both have to bask in that moment of that outside stimulus, right? Exactly. Because it feeds our dopamine, and we're all excited.
Especially in this valley where entire careers and lifestyles are built around it.
Especially here. So when I started down this wormhole, so to speak, it just allowed me to realize one thing, and it was like, wow, the longer once I went through the withdrawals, which for sugar is also, I also stopped caffeine, so I haven't had anything caffeinated.
That's amazing.
In a year.
Yeah.
So it was caffeine and alcohol.
Doesn't it make you feel smug? When I got off caffeine, I was like, I'm not even on coffee.
Oh,
I'm so sober.
It makes you feel.
I felt like I don't know. I felt like I don't need anything. And that was a crazy feeling.
Oh, my ego I'm just better.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm better than everybody. Yeah, I'm just better than everybody. I
did it for a little while. I'm back on coffee, but when I've
been off and down so many times, in and out of coffee. It's a Cuban thing, and I don't know in your culture what it's like, but
well, it's like emotionally addicting too, like the whole ritual of the morning and the smells.
Okay, tell me the truth. Have you ever seen? Let's compare cultures. Have you ever seen a mom put Coca-Cola in a baby's bottle and put it in their mouth?
No.
We grew up with that.
Okay.
They would put Coca-Cola. in a baby bottle.
Like when you're very common in Mexico.
1 or 2 years old, I would think Mexico would do it. In Puerto
Yeah.
Rico, they would do that. Café con leche with sugar in it. Absolutely. A little coffee, milk, and your little, and baby, I'm talking, a year and a half old.
Mm.
Here, honey, have some of this. It tastes delicious.
So as a child, you're just like, yeah.
You're being fed caffeine.
Wow.
Early on. And it's just not, it's not looked down on. They make it very light, mostly milk, well, let's start with milk is not necessarily good for babies.
Yeah.
Cow's milk is not good for anyone.
Yeah.
And we're finally starting to crack that code and realize that the milk industry is totally plummeted, and the nut milk business is just taking over all the shelves. And then now I think we're getting smart enough to know that not all nut milks are created equal.
Yeah. Have you ever made your own nut milk?
Which one?
Have you ever made your own almond milk?
I've never made it, but I bought it at the farmer's market.
It is surprisingly so easy to make. I thought it would take like a billion almonds to make like almond milk, but it takes like a very small amount to make a ton of almond milk.
More water. Yeah, we pay a lot of money for that labor.
Yeah.
It is very. And
it's not even that hard to make. I was impressed.
At the farmer's market, they make it in front of you.
Yeah.
And they're just you're going, I'm paying for all that water.
Wait, I'm just squeezing out that water.
They should make it in front of you because you're like, wow.
Why am I paying that much?
Wow.
That's funny.
Yeah, so then the one thing that I connected with early on was that the more time would pass after the withdrawals, and the longest withdrawal, I think salt and oil were the longest.
I bet, yeah. Oil was a hard one for me to let go of too.
Hard.
I was raw vegan for 50 days one time. And like toward the end of it, I was just like craving something fried or crunchy like that. I didn't want like the crunchy of celery. I wanted like a specific fried crunchy. It was really hard to get rid of.
I did raw vegan probably for a few months, and I gained weight.
You gained weight?
Oh yeah, a lot of weight.
Why is that? Because you were just eating so much? I found myself binging on dates. So
I can binge on dates.
Yeah.
I can binge on nuts, like if they were popcorn.
Yeah.
And
nuts
avocados.
So
I can binge. To me, an avocado and a steak are the same thing. I can eat avocados as if it was a steak, and I love it.
Yeah.
And my son and I would get into. We made cashew Alfredo sauce.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff's really high fat.
It's so calorically dense.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that I learned is nutritionally dense opposed to calorically dense foods. So getting off the calorically dense foods that have no fiber, that was also a real good gift.
And then I was learning about Ayurveda. I went to over there in Sevastopol, they used to have the Dhyana Center, but now it's become soft medicine. It's a really amazing place. You should definitely go check it out.
They've been trying to get me to join forever, and I've been just putting it up. And I don't know why I resisted.
You would love it. It's so wonderful. It's a beautiful space for people to come and do yoga. You can learn Reiki attunement. They have ecstatic dance. They have a little vegan like bar there. But they're very centered around wellness of all kinds, and it's just a hub for people like us. And around here, there's really nothing like it in this whole Napa Valley, personally, in my opinion.
Have you ever gone to Spirit Rock?
I haven't, and I've always wanted to.
That you should do. Yeah, we've done a silent retreat there, only for a day.
I want to. That's amazing.
Only for a day, and it was pretty special.
Very special.
Nice. And then we did a class first, and then the silent retreat was in the afternoon.
I can't wait to do something like that.
It was really good. It's so convenient. It's so close. So Spirit Rock is a pretty special place.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
So the Ayurveda, I was learning. So when I was raw vegan, I liked it. I loved it actually, and I was like feeling all ripped, and I felt like I had so much energy. I felt like I needed 4 hours of sleep, and I was like awake, ready to do everything. But then I almost felt like it was like this manic, crazy energy where I'm just like, I need to be more grounded. Like, what's wrong with me? And then I learned about Ayurveda. And I found out that I have everybody has a certain dosha. Do you know about it, Ayurveda?
A little bit, yeah.
So I tend to be more of a
Sierra knows a lot about the dosha.
It's super.
Yeah.
Once I learned about it, I was like mind blown because I was like, of course it's healthy to be raw vegan. But for me specifically, because of my particular dosha, I tend to be more air. So for me to be eating a lot of cold and light foods was just increasing my air. So I was just feeling super ungrounded and mixed up in my mind and like not able to focus on things, and all because I was eating too much.
Tattoo on your palm?
Yes, it is.
Oh my God, that must have hurt.
It hurt so bad.
That had to hurt.
I had no idea it would be that painful. I was like, I just want it on my palm. And then she's like, so you know that everything about this is going to be way more intense than any other tattoo you've ever had.
Imagine all the nerves that are there.
Yeah, it felt like searing pain. Like in other tattoos, when I'm getting it done, you're like prepared for the pain. This one, it felt like it took everything for me not to pull my hand away from, because it felt like a sword just slicing in there pretty bit.
Well, I wanted it. It's amazing how when you get tattoos, the nerves that transfer the pain somewhere else in the body.
Well, it was so weird because at first I was like, wow, like the same pain was really bright.
Yeah.
But then chemicals came over,
Yeah.
and then I got the giggles. And then I was just giggling while she was doing it.
I
But I felt
that.
like better after. I was like, oh, this is funny for some reason.
Did they do that in Napa?
Yeah.
Who did it?
It was a girl that doesn't tattoo anymore, but her name is Christina McDonald.
Yeah, she doesn't tattoo. She did some work on me.
She did work on you there?
Yeah,
she did work on you there too.
You're right. Yeah, she filled out the this is my son's heart because he had open heart surgery.
Oh, wow.
And she did this around the heart.
The flower of life.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She did that around the heart.
Amazing. Yeah. She's an incredible artist. I didn't get tattoos for a long time because actually my sister got a lot
incredible.
of tattoos.
Actually, her sister, you should come over. Her sister's going to be playing where I live on Friday. That would be amazing. Cool. If you wanted to come, we would host you. Then that way you can meet my son and my daughter-in-law because her sister's name is Sierra also.
Very cool.
And she used to go to school with my son, and we still laugh that when she would come to my house when they were 7, 8, 9 years old. Back in those days, they would take baths together, and we were thinking her mother's just going to kill us. Her mother's like, no, those two are like brother and sister. They're really like brother. They were adorable, those two, and till today they're very close friends.
That's a really special friendship.
And Sierra now is a park ranger.
Oh,
which I never would have met, but she's going to be playing music, or she plays. Nice. They're all super.
I've actually never met her sister, but I've just known them peripherally because we all grew up in Napa. So
yeah, that's funny. No, so it's funny that she did work on me and.
She stopped tattooing. I had a
Why would she
premonition.
Stop tattooing?
I think only because she was wanting to focus on doing more murals and other things, because she does a lot of other things.
Wow.
So I think, and she was getting really popular. She was starting to get booked, and I think she was just getting like kind of burnt out. Yeah. And I kind of felt it because I was getting a lot of appointments. I would make an appointment right after I finished my tattoo, and I was just doing one after another for a while. Yeah. And then she stopped. So.
Did you work at the tattoo place or no?
I didn't. No, I just was getting tattoos.
Okay, it was just hard to get in.
Hard to get in. Therapy for a little while.
So do you do tattoos more of an expression of you are a creative person? I know that. I've always known that because when I met you, you were doing like signs for Trader Joe's and all the letter writing and the stuff is just off the charts and
super highly. Much.
Yeah.
I still do that. I'm doing chalkboards right now for a Monday Bakery in Napa.
Off the charts, the way you do that. I mean, it's so off the charts creative. But so your tattoos, do you do them because of your creative expression, or do you do them out of pain from something? or to elaborate on a good moment.
Yeah, well, kind of all those. Like, I actually didn't get tattoos for a long time because everybody was getting tattoos when I was younger, and I saw my friends getting all these like tattoos they were not happy about, and I was like, wow, that looks. I don't want to make a mistake like that. I was like, I have nice skin. I don't want to mess it up. So I just stayed with no tattoos for a long time, and then once I had my son and I had my spiritual awakening, I was like, I want to get a tattoo of gratitude of my son's name. So I had him write the word thankful when he was 4. And so this is like in gratitude for my like spiritual awakening and my son. And then I was just going to leave it at that. But then, of course, it's like a little bit addicting. So I was like, and then I wanted to get a tree house on my thigh. Yeah. So I got that. And then I just started kind of getting other things. Wow. But yeah, it's definitely like a form of self-expression. And as well as, a little bit of therapy for a little while. It was when I was getting it the most. But I've stopped for a little bit because I noticed that it really affects the texture of your skin, or like because I have a big one here of Joshua tree. Yeah. And I noticed that the skin under here is no longer as smooth as it used to be because it's all like basically scarred skin now. Right. So so I don't really want to keep doing that. I'm gonna wait a little while.
Right. No, that's good to reflect on that. For me, it's really either celebrate a moment. I put one on my leg because when we're 35 years married now, but it was my 25th.
Congrats.
Thank you. So that one was meaningful because that moment was representative of something big. Mm-hmm. And I think the rest are primarily because of, things that have caused enough pain that the pain of getting that work done is not even a fraction of the actual pain of what the tattoo represents. So,
right. And I feel like there's a big part of it.
But you're on the other side of it.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Definitely.
Sorry.
And feeling like it changes your physical appearance. Yeah. So like when I'm, sometimes when you go through something and you're like, I need to cut my hair, I need to do something. Yeah. So it was coming out of that. It was like wanting to be feeling like a different version of myself and wanting a physical representation of that.
Yeah. Have you ever heard, now going back to yoga and meditation and things like that, have you ever heard of TM?
I have heard of TM.
Wow.
I have a lot of thoughts about it.
I'd love to hear them.
So from what I understand, TM is sort of cult-like only because they give you a certain mantra, but you don't know what it means, and you're not supposed to tell anybody else. And I don't really like secret weird things like that. And I don't really like, I don't want to repeat a mantra if I don't know what it means. That's weird. And I just feel like, there's so many ways to approach spirituality, and I don't like when any one type of spirituality wants to contain me within it. I will not be contained. So I love to learn about all different methods. Have you read Life of Pi?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I love that. I love that.
That's an amazing movie and book. The kid in the beginning.
That one impacted me. That one stayed with me. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite books ever.
Yeah.
But Pi was very interested in like all religions, and he didn't understand why he couldn't love God in all forms.
Yes.
And I feel like I resonate with that. I like learning. I feel like God and Allah and all the different gods that people are talking about, and nature and the universe, are all kind of talking about the same thing. So I like learning about it in as many ways as possible to gain my own understanding. So that's why I didn't really, when I was looking into TM, I love that some people have gotten, because it's a way to learn about meditation. So of course it can work for certain people that it resonates with. But for me, I was like, I don't want to be put in a box.
So. Put baby in a corner.
Yeah.
So okay, I had an experience with TM. But before we go there's something you said that I wanted to touch on. You were saying something about, shoot, I'm going to have to come back to it, but let's go back to TM. So TM, I've been meditating since I was 12 years old and never hit a gear like I did with TM.
Amazing. I was just going to say, I just told you my opinion on it without finding out first if it like changed your life.
I'm so glad you did. That was the most important thing. Oh, I think
because that's authentic, I guess.
And that was and true, and your truth. So thank you. That's your truth. I have my judgment on TM now that I've experienced it. I'd be curious if you'd be open to experiencing it, so one day we can talk about it.
Absolutely, I'm very open to.
That would be cool, because I love to get your perspective after you try. Here's what I found. The short version of what I found is that it was too deep. The meditation was too deep for me. So you're gonna be asked to go to a place so deep that I found that it affected, almost affected my nervous system in a way. Instead of finding relaxation in that place, because once you do get that mantra, it quiets everything.
It's insane. Mantras are so powerful.
Insane. And I found, I did a little bit of homework. Jerry Seinfeld is big into it, so I love Jerry Seinfeld, cool. And so he's huge into it. He's been into it before his show,
Very cool.
And that's how he asked his family to ground themselves. If they're dysregulated, do a little TM. Go do a 20-minute TM. Just do it. And I may visit it at a different time when I feel that I'm in a better place for it. But man, it was. You can get into a meditative state that, again, all the meditations that I've done throughout different instructors don't even compare. And It was literally by, you go to this place and, you sign up, you pay a little bit of money, you get a TM instructor. You can tell that everybody, it's cult-like, because the people that are, but I think the cult-like aspect is from people that are the instructors. Those are the people. I
appreciate enthusiasm too about things. I'm sure people probably think I'm in a cult in some way about books or something. I don't know.
and people with me might be thinking, oh my God, Jerry has lost it, or Jerry's going that, and I was like, then for a period of time there, I was the #1 real estate salesperson in Napa, and that tied into my identity and who I am. And people don't understand that what makes us unique is the fact that we're so multifaceted, hopefully outside of the exterior identity that we've created to put food on the table, So yeah, we all get judged, and I think we all judge, So in a certain way, we're all evolutionarily, that's how we survive, is by judging things. And yeah, that person there, it's on the corner of the street, hasn't showered in 3 months, and as much as I love humanity, I'm probably going to walk with a little distance, because of that appearance, and it's something that because you might be able to make the assessment that there might be mental illness or there might be something else, and it happens only from an exterior place. You can't.
But with awareness, I can look at judgment and be like, wait, why am I judging that?
With awareness, we can totally show empathy and maybe even say good morning with a cautious distance. You can say good morning and sort of feel out if there's an energy that is more welcoming, because we're animals. We're literally just there to assess, and judgment is what keeps us alive. If we don't judge, we can't survive. You know, you can walk into really bad situations if you're not of judgment.
Yeah, there's a certain survival aspect to it, for
absolutely,
sure.
Absolutely.
But I'm always interested in being, I really value open-mindedness, though, because I feel like 100%. As long as I stay with a certain belief or I have a certain mindset about something, like becoming aware, like when I have a judgment about something, not just staying with that, but being like, okay, why did I have a judgment about that? Is that because somebody told me a long time ago that I should judge that? Like, it's having more awareness than that.
Right.
But I really like learning about all different forms of meditation and so I'm very interested in hearing your experience with TM, because I used to be really like kind of turned off by mantra, because I used to be an atheist before I started my whole spiritual journey. So I was like, I don't want to be saying some other language, like religious chant, like I don't know what I'm saying. But then I did a class, because once I started getting more into these practices, I was like, okay, I need to let go of my ideas of things and really just try, like, why do people keep talking about mantra? So I took a class from a lady that's actually right here on Jefferson a long time ago. I forget her name. I forget her name, but it says like "Just Breathe" on Jefferson.
I've seen that,
yeah. But I've taken a class there one time. I didn't really feel called to go back because I love doing the practice on my own, and I'm an autodidact. I like learning and from different teachers and stuff. But a lot of people really like going to that teacher, and she does mantra meditation. And I had a really transcendental experience there. I didn't like understand what we were doing, but I was in there doing the thing over and over, and then when we came out of it, I was like, whoa. So it was definitely something.
I want you to I don't know what you're doing Saturday morning, but I have to see. I haven't been to her class in weeks now, but I told you about my friend Kat, and she does some of them at Health Quest, but she does do one or twice a week at her home. Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. she does them. I don't know if you're working, but
I usually teach yoga at 9 a.m. Saturday morning.
She does a Wednesday p.m. at her house sometimes.
Is it a meditation class?
A breathwork class.
Oh, cool.
It's breathwork. And
I could probably do Wednesday night sometime.
That'd be cool. I'll invite you to one so you can come over, and if not, I'll send you the invite to the ones that she does at the gym. The ones at the gym, I just find that they're more more physical than just breathing. The one the several that I've done at her house on Saturdays, they're all breath work, and the first one was just transformative. It was really, I've never done breath work like that.
Wow.
And it was Kundalini. So she's really mastered that, and she's been all over the world. She's a fascinating cat.
Nice.
She used to be in real estate, so I love the story that she sort of transitioned from that. And you used the word atheist a minute ago. So I've been an atheist till about 3 hours ago.
Really?
So to speak.
I'm excited to be here in this moment.
It's been recent, but I don't know that I'm out yet. I'm in discovery, and I really want to connect with a higher power or with something, because I do find intelligence in that. I also find self-care in that. I have connected with the fact that we are not the most important thing, that there's something bigger than all of us. So I loved when you said, I thought it was so beautifully put when you said, why can't we just be okay with everything that anybody wants to worship to? Why can't we be okay with that? Because I think that's where, my disdain, because I grew up Catholic, my disdain has always been with organized religion and the pain that has caused over thousands of years. So that's where I'm like, okay, well, how can I'm equating God to organized religion, and how can God allow that to happen? Not realizing that God doesn't allow or not allow for things to happen.
Right. Supposedly we were given free will.
It makes me think of free will, right? So whatever's going to happen here is going to happen here. But that there is something bigger than us out there, and that we're not smart enough to be able to rationally dismiss a higher power. That's where I'm starting to connect with that ego that needs to be removed. Because for me, atheist was almost as a badge of honor. You're all foolish. I'm smarter.
That's how I felt. I was like, why is everybody so worried about like Sky Daddy? Like, why are we existing? Why aren't we here now, like living? And like, why is everybody like trying to like connect with this invisible thing? I just thought it was all so silly and like a waste of time, genuinely. And then the more I was doing meditation, the more I was feeling this like interesting feelings and sensations. And then during one meditation, I actually had like an insane energetic experience where it came up from my stomach or lower stomach and out through like my throat. And I started crying and I was like totally thrown off. It actually really disturbed me because I went from being an atheist who was just meditating a lot and wondering what was going on to like thanking the sky in my bedroom by myself. So I had this split in my consciousness where like my physical body was crying and feeling this bliss and ecstatic feeling and thanking the sky. And then my conscious mind was like, who are you thanking? and then another part of me was like, who's who here? Who's thanking the sky? Who's saying who are you thanking? And then who is observing all this happening? So I felt completely like I had gone insane, and I was like, okay, I can't be a part of society. Apparently I'm going insane. I need to meditating a lot. And my parents were like, are you on drugs, honey? You can tell us. And I was like, no, I just been meditating a lot. I even stopped smoking weed. I've just been meditating, and I'm telling you, it's just we were actually a part of everything. And like, and it was a really challenging thing to deal with, like going from being full on atheist to suddenly thanking God and then having to make sense of that. So yeah, it's very interesting, these journeys. I love hearing. That's why I started my podcast a long time ago, was to start talking about that experience and find out about other people's journeys, like how they first made a connection with spirituality, because it's so different for everyone.
Yeah. No, that was so well put. I'm just visualizing, because I know your parents. I'm just visualizing those conversations. Your dad is probably the softest spoken man I know.
Yeah. He's a sweetie.
He is just, man, he is butter. I mean, he's just, hopefully you watch a little bit of, I never told you what Guy Gal said about you.
Oh, no.
Guy Gal was the person that I said had the addiction to food.
That's right.
Guy has built multi-billion-dollar company. He's in his 30s and he's built right now the company he owns now is worth over $2.5 billion.
Very nice. That's amazing.
I'm just lucky to share space with him, and I love to say that we become very close, because
very nice.
On a spiritual level, I think more than
you're both on a frequency.
Yeah, we are. Together. We're totally in a frequency. But we went right after his podcast. He was starving. I was starving, and that day I was going to have a second podcast with another highly creative person. And that podcast hasn't come out. That one will come out before this one, so you'll get to watch the one with Ian that I thought he's an amazing vocalist, songwriter, winemaker. He is super cool.
I feel like maybe I know him.
Yeah, you might. So you got out of your car and we were behind you at the store. Also, Guy did see me talk to you at the store that day. Guy was with me. He was behind me with Edisham. And but when you walked out of your car, the words out of his mouth were, "I love her style."
Oh.
Right away, he said that about you.
That's
and
cool.
I still wasn't sure it was you, because you were eclectically bohemianly dressed.
Oh, nice.
It was very cool.
Thank you.
And you can see Guy's got a real creative side, so you can see where he would appreciate that. And he's like, I like her style. And at that point, he didn't know I knew you.
Yeah.
It was inside the store where he says, oh, Jerry, God, you know everybody. I said, no, I just know her.
Yeah, you do know everybody, though.
No, it's been nice. That's one of the gifts in moving, from New York City. I moved here in '87 into this town of
tiny little town,
and then you build a business in this tiny little town that's in retail, so you get to meet a lot of people. Then I go into another business where you meet a lot of people, and then I meet people like your parents who have been here your family has multi-generational.
Mm-hmm. I mean, third generation.
Your family, or like some of the first Mexican families in St. Helena.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you go back that far.
Yeah, my great grandma was the first bartender in Rutherford, and my grandma went to St. Helena High School. Which I did not know. I thought she was here after high school, but she actually went to St. Helena.
That doesn't surprise me at all, because I knew they were. I mean, the Gonzalez's are like one of the original.
Like part of that history.
Oh, for real.
Yeah.
For real.
I'm honored.
Yeah, and the gentrification. They've seen the gentrification of San Helena now.
Oh yeah,
of
we're
Napa.
watching it all the time.
It's really shifted, to where people come here from all over the world and then get to buy a piece of this place for fractions of the dollar of where they live. Because people from San Francisco come here and buy for a discount.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, for a real discount. So.
Well, I'm honored your friend said he liked my style.
He totally loved your style.
I have to say one little cool thing that I wanted to talk about is that I just recently won in April this North Bay fashion ball that I entered into. And it was this really cool thing. So I just feel proud of it. And I feel like it's going to be over in 2024, so I might as well tout it. This is part of my tiara that broke.
Oh my God! Talk about a creative had to make something out of it.
Yeah. And I was like, well, plus it feels dumb to wear a tiara full on, so
that would have been badass. My granddaughter would totally approve. Approve. So tell me more about that thing.
I found out about this thing. I like doing sewing and little creative. I do a million creative things, but I love sewing. And so I found out about this. I needed something to do with the whole not dating thing. I was like, I need to occupy my time and not be depressed. I need to put my energy into something. So I looked into, I found on Google just about this trashion show. It was like, make clothing out of trash. And I was like, I could do that. So I made a jacket out of Ziploc bags and like a bunch of packing things. And I went on the runway and did this whole thing. And that was fun. And I learned I got like a runway coach to like teach us how to do. So it was like part of the journey. I didn't know. But I was like getting training for this next thing that I found out about, which was the North Bay Fashion Ball in Sonoma County.
Wow.
And it was put on by somebody who, it was like a runway show for vintage sellers to have their stuff shown on the runway, as well as independent designers showing upcycled creations. And like, so I was like, oh, I want to make something for this.
Wow.
And so I just, I had this grandma onesie blanket, like, a crocheted blanket like grandmas make.
Sure.
I found that and I was like, I want to make this into like a hooded onesie, because I had this hooded onesie thing that I wear all the time that is fun. And for some reason, I thought it would be easy to make out of this.
You may have been wearing
onesie.
the hooded onesie that day.
I don't know if I was, because I don't wear it in public anymore.
Oh, okay.
It's fun to wear, but it's like wearing a big bird costume. Like, people come up to me and they're like, where did you get that? That thing's crazy. Like, so I become like a spectacle.
Okay.
So only if I'm prepared to be a spectacle. And it weighs like 15 pounds.
It's a social experiment.
Yeah.
You just go out and just put it out there.
It's very interesting. But yeah, so I ended up making this thing, and it was really hard to make. And I was like on this creative whim. Like every day I was like waking up and wanting to do it. And I like didn't have time for it, but I was just in this total zone for like 14 days making this thing.
Wow.
And it was hard, and I kept making all these. I made a ton of mistakes. Like, it would have been faster if I did it like in a more professional way, but I just did it in this like very crazy, chaotic way.
Sure.
And then it came out beautifully, and I ended up winning Queen and Princess of the North Bay Fashion Ball. And so it really inspired me, and it made me realize that I'm a lot more capable than I think I am. And so it's been like a new venture for me to like look more into designing things.
All I keep thinking is, did they take do you have an image of that?
I do. I actually have a video of myself on the runway.
Can you send me something?
I can, yeah.
I love to add it to the clips,
sure.
The show notes of the.
Yeah, well, you got to see the onesie. It's quite a spectacle.
I want to see it.
It's got 6 pockets. I put so much effort into it. I do embroidery too sometimes for fun. So I got an old embroidery kit from like the 70s and finished that during COVID, and I put that on the front. Wow. So the total hours put into this thing is like more than I can even calculate, just the amount. But it was fun.
That's amazing.
And I'm amazed too, because when I was done with it, I was like, because I've had a little bit of self-esteem issues due to like emotional abuse in relationships in the past. So I've been like building myself back up. And when I finished making this thing, I was like, I made something that now exists, that like it has a life beyond like when I'm gone. Yeah. Somebody will be like, wow, an artist made this, and this thing like is now like a legacy, kind of. It made me realize I can make something that can exist beyond me and make people smile beyond me being here on Earth, which is really powerful.
Beautifully said.
So I want to keep doing more stuff like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You remind me a little bit of my son Jerry, because he's got this creative energy just constantly. He's really getting into jewelry making.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and he's always, since he was a little boy, he's loved stones, any type of stone. So,
I have crystals for you. I'm going to dig them out, but I have some tiger for you.
Oh my God, that's amazing. So because of Jerry, we've grown to love that. He even takes us to places that sell them, or we go to
the rock shop.
Always loves rock. We stop at rock shops no matter where we are. That's the rock shop we're stopping. The other thing is, I don't know if you've ever been to Jade Beach. on the coast of Highway
I
1.
haven't. Everybody tells me I still have never been.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, you'll have guys out there that find the ocean jade out there and they sell them, and they're just beautiful.
Wow.
So it's a cool place to go. It's towards Carmel.
Yeah.
But it's really sweet. Yeah. So yeah, I can see people like you that have that creative outlet. I'm only starting to relate to it now because I'm starting to express it through this format.
Yeah, this is absolutely an art form.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. I've always done it with real estate and houses and
building
this place.
This is a whole art project.
Yeah, these floors came out of the 1906 fire of an elevator in San Francisco.
Wow, that's
cool.
So
they have a history of itself. Those countertops in that little kitchen, that's got a stove and everything there. And that countertop is made out of mango tree out of Hawaii.
That's really neat.
The shelves on top are black walnut, and
Special.
Again, it took a lot of labor to just sand those to look that way. I mean, it's really a cool expression of what we wanted to make for Jerry Jr. here.
Yeah.
So the guy that laid the tile there, he was like the most meticulous. Must have taken him 2 weeks to finish the tile job in that tiny little bathroom.
Wow, it looks beautiful.
It's the most perfectly laid out tile work I've ever seen.
I love that you have historical wood in here too. I'm a nerd about history. I collect old postcards and old books, and so I love old things. So that's really neat.
Yeah, these floors costed more than if it was a big house for these little space because they came with that history. We just wanted that. So, yeah, I'm gonna only check in on my time because I had a feeling that much time had gone by. I did a super long podcast with Guy. I think it went right at 2 hours, and it was because it felt like 15 minutes. And I have to say that spending time with you, this has felt like 5 minutes. Yeah,
no, it's fun. There's so many things to talk about with this subject. And whenever anybody wants to talk to me about it, I could go on forever. So I appreciate that.
I want to do this again. I definitely want to do this again. I want to maybe offline talk a little bit about TM and maybe, where I went, and it's so convenient. I'd love to tiptoe my toe into it again.
Where you went? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Where I went?
In your meditation? I would love to hear about that if we have a moment.
Yeah, so I'm putting my arms like this because I'm probably guarding myself.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why, but it just...
You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
No, I do.
Oh, okay.
I do, totally. It was... They talk a lot about diet, and I also want to honor your experience. So I don't want to say that's why I'm choosing my words a little carefully, because I want you to have your own judgment and experience, and I don't want to tell you everything about the practice, because I think they do a great job creating an outline for you so you get what you need to get from it. I think they do a good job with that, and I think there's so much. I mean, the Beatles did this, to transcend, to try to get to a transcendental state.
The Hare Krishna chant, the Hare Krishna mantra, totally insane. I found a little book about it at a thrift store one time and started doing this chant just as a little experiment, and had insane experiences with it. I made a TikTok story or an Instagram thing. I was like, does anybody know about Hare Krishna? And people were laughing at me. They're like, only everyone in the 60s and the Beatles. I was like, oh, okay, I guess it was a big deal. I see why.
Growing up, I was scared of them.
I can see why. I mean, you're kind of like, why are you so excited about this?
I was so scared of them. When my mom was in the University of Puerto Rico, they would all walk around, all the Hare Krishnas, orange outfits, shaved heads, and little ponytails. And I used to thought they were out to get me.
Well, I mean, that's a little weird.
Yeah, it was intense.
You don't know what it's about. You're like,
it was intense. So no, when I went into, when I started with TM, I started following the practice just as instructed. And I think I was at a state where I was very curious and trying to find a way to ground myself and get to a state of meditation where I can just kind of let go of a lot of that held trauma from childhood. And I thought, learning what I learned, I thought this one might be an avenue towards that, because I'd never been able to deeply meditate. Meditation has been so elusive. Therapists that I've gone to and all that, everybody would suggest meditate, and I've done it so much, but never connected because my mind was always so busy with fleeing thoughts. And I just decided that let me just find something that people say works for them, and then a lot of people say it works for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I went over there, and then part of the practice is to find the ocean's floor. So you're pretty much diving. Just imagine yourself jumping in the water. Imagine yourself having unlimited breath, and you're looking for a place. It's not like you're going down 20 feet. It's like you're going down thousands of feet.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes, this is a 20-minute practice,
Mm-hmm.
and not more. And I can almost see why it's not more, but through the mantra, it gets quieter and quieter, and finally, when you get to the depth of that place, do you start? For me, my experience was I started to feel so cathartic and so alone and scared that I don't know. There were times that I didn't know I can come back
Within the meditation.
Mm-hmm. And that I think and then I thought maybe I just need to do it more, because maybe by doing it more I could master that, or maybe I can control that feeling, and that's the last thing that you're going to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, maybe I need to go back and talk to an instructor, and maybe I go to 10 minutes, and maybe I don't go that deep, or maybe there's I just got scared.
Yeah, that's understandable. It's such a huge inner world to explore. There's so many different experiences you could be having within it. And it feels like sometimes you're doing it wrong, or you need a guide, or you don't, or you doubt yourself. But one of the things that I was told that was really helpful was just knowing that every time you choose to sit down to meditate, even if that whole 15 minutes you're going through your racing thoughts, because you chose to give yourself that appointed time, like regularly, even if you're just going through your racing thoughts for that 15 minutes and you're like, oh, well, I didn't do a very good job. You still sat there for the 15 minutes at the time you said you were going to. So that's a successful meditation. And then the next day you'll find the practice I found, it builds on itself. So if I don't do it for a few days and then I go try to meditate again, suddenly I'm having scrolling going on in my brain when my eyes are closed, or songs playing that I keep playing in my car or something. And so it takes a little while to get through that, but it's like about staying. I like getting in these states often throughout the day to just keep bringing myself back to these calmer states so that it becomes easier to then get to those places more often, because we're building a channel in our brain that is then solidifying and making it easier for you to access that place. So the more you're doing it and the more you're staying there and the more you're practicing, the easier it gets. And I feel like one really good thing that's helped me so much with meditation has been floating in the float tank. Because
that's interesting.
It drops me into a deep state of meditation, because a lot of the barriers to meditation I've looked at, like they talk about it in yoga books too. The things that'll keep you from meditating are like your body being physically uncomfortable, thinking that you have other things to do, having things that you feel like you need to be doing other than that. So when you're in the float tank, you made the choice to make an appointment for that period of time. You don't have anything else you really need to do, because you know that you need to be there. You told everybody else. Plus, you're completely comfortable because your body is not uncomfortable in the seat. You have no gravity. You're being lifted. You're floating like an embryo, like like in the womb or something.
Like an embryo.
You're just floating. There's no pain in your body. You're just like, gravity is lifting you up, and then you're in this dark place. So and it's quiet. So there's no distractions.
I love that.
So you're suddenly just dropped into this deeper meditation where it would normally take a long time to kind of get there, and because you're there for a whole hour, I find that it just it's like a big jump start to my meditation practice. And then I can do it easier after that initial session, or I'll do a few sessions in 1 week at the float spa, and then I'll keep meditating and I'll feel like I'm actually getting somewhere.
I love that you suggested that without suggesting it. That's awesome. I
don't mean to it's so weird. I don't mean to be a float influencer.
Yeah, there we go.
But I used to work at the float spa, and I learned about floating before they opened. And when they started opening, I was like, I need to work at that place because I want to float. And so I got a job there, and then they were like, we need you to be float experts. So they had us float as much as possible, and we were floating for free. So I was taking advantage of that and just floating as often as I could. And it was insanely transformative. At one point I was working 3 different jobs, and I just felt like everything in my whole life was utter chaos, and I felt like I was losing my mind. And I was like, I'm gonna float every day this week just to like see if I can fix my life from the inside.
Yeah.
So I floated an hour each day, and I didn't have time for it, but I just like made it anyway. And then every day that I got out of the float take, I would handle something that really needed to be done. And then by the end of the week, my room and house and bills were paid. Everything was clean. I felt like organized.
You were flowing.
Yeah. And when I woke up that 7th morning, I heard birds outside.
Wow.
And I was like, my mind is empty and I feel good and everything's clean. And it just changed everything. So I just, highly recommend trying it.
Well, I was the pool where I live is it's temperature control, so it's got heaters, and so it's very indulgent to jump into that pool. And there was a floaty sitting there, like a couple of those noodles, but they were like real fat noodles.
Yeah, you could put one behind your neck. Behind your leg.
I did that.
Yeah.
I did that, and when it was quiet, that's why I'm thinking, a floating pool, something that's got to be magical, because I was able to meditate for a little bit there. Or I actually had the thought of, this is a good meditation moment. This is really, because there was nobody, and there's never a pool where I live. I mean, most of those places are like second home, so nobody's ever there.
Nice.
And you can just, so I'm going to take you up on that. I'm definitely going to do that. It's so
worth it. It's really cool. Yeah.
It's opposite. I did the cold plunge the other day at 45 degrees. Very different, very different experience.
That's good for healing. And
that was intense, man. I did 5 minutes of that. That was, have you ever done cold plunges?
I honestly, I'm a wuss about it. I just get in a little and get back out.
Oh my God, it is late. I mean, I've done them at home at like 55 to 60 degrees. Putting some ice in it and all that. No, this is 45 is legit. I mean, you're going to feel pain like you've never felt before.
Where are you doing that at?
There's a place here called Club Tan.
Oh, I know about that place.
It's on Main Street.
Okay.
Right behind the 7-Eleven.
I didn't know they had a cold plunge.
That's no, they got all the like state-of-the-art stuff. And the cold plunge there is legit. I mean, it's
very
legit.
cool.
And
a lot of my friends have been doing that.
They have an infrared sauna too.
Nice.
Yeah, so I do sauna a lot. I do enjoy doing sauna. I do probably 3 times a week.
I love the
20
sauna.
Minutes. Yeah. So I think that my goal is to bother you one day and do this again.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Because it'd be amazing. I'm also gonna send you information about Sierra's thing on Friday, who's gonna be playing music out where I live at Silverado.
I'd love to see that. That sounds cool.
And it'd be a cool way for you to meet my family and some of the people that matter most to me. It'd be so cool.
Very nice.
And bring whoever you want. Bring your son.
My son, I have it with me all the time.
That's your date.
He's my homie. He's my road dog.
He is your road dog. That guy. Oh my God. Does he still hang around a lot with your mom or no?
He does. He's really close to my mom still. Yeah.
He's got to be close to your mom.
Yeah, but me and him are buddies. He's so good. He's awesome. We just go riding his bike all over. He's obsessed with BMXing, and we go out in nature all the time.
So cool.
So it's blast. I feel lucky.
Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
So cool. Thanks.
Thank you. What a blast.
Thank you.